All right, so for this week's Weekly Wave, we have a couple of things we need to let you know about. First and foremost, ASR. So we've been getting a lot of emails related to transportation issues, and I felt like it would be a good time to just walk through the three things that we're typically seeing. Right now, we're seeing for some districts, you have a couple of students that have transportation in your local system that isn't being sent up to the state. That falls into the no transportation issue. If you are noticing that you have students that are 0 and they're above, the mile threshold that you're allowed to transport students with, if you do notice that you have students that are showing up with zeros on the report, please do reach out to us. We can take a look and see what's currently being sent to the wave. Because for transportation, we are taking the value in most cases directly from what's being sent from your student information system. The only manipulation we are doing with transportation is in the event of a transportation number that is higher than the student was enrolled. So for example, if a student was enrolled for only, let's say 50 days, and we get a transportation record saying they were transported for 100 days, obviously we can't display that on the report, so we will display a 50 in that case, most likely. So the other issue that we're seeing with transportation is we're getting too much transportation. Transportation record that is sent to the state has a start and an end date. That allows us to know whether or not we are getting transportation that exists outside of their enrollment. We've come across a couple of those. Right now, we are requesting for transportation to be sent up to the state as of March 12th. So either we'll get a March 12th end date, or if your student did exit earlier in the year, we'll get the transportation record up until they exited. So for those of you who are seeing too much transportation on the report, it's most likely that we did get a record at one point in the year saying, let's say 70 transportation for a student, but you may have made adjustments, or it could be anything really where there was an adjustment made to transportation and now we need an updated record. We haven't gotten that. So in those cases, you'll most likely see too many days of transportation for your students. If you're seeing that, reach out to us. The last issue that we're seeing is not enough transportation. Same rules apply there. We are getting records that may not, for some districts, we're still only getting the FQSR set of transportation numbers. We have been making requests throughout the week for transportation. If you've been reaching out to our office or to state aid, typically transportation and attendance are only requested on Saturdays. So if you are making any sort of adjustments in your local system during the week, expecting for the wave to get those updates, we will not. We do have to specifically request for this information. It's not something that the student information system vendors are typically sending to us on their own. This particular set of information is not set up to do that. So we do need to request for that. So if you are making changes, either deleting or making adjustments or anything under the sun, please reach out to us and we'll make sure to re-request for transportation during the week. Now, we do still have an overall issue with transportation right now. It's not affecting as many districts as it was when our communication about this first went out. This is a message that you all can see on the WAVE's homepage about either seeing too much transportation or not enough transportation. That issue is completely separate from the three scenarios I just mentioned. The issue that we're having right now with transportation for some districts is We are getting the correct number of transportation. We are just also getting a secondary record that's saying that has a different number. So our system is getting a little confused. So we're making some adjustments to how we are displaying the transportation back to you in the event of us getting multiple transportation numbers. So just bear with us on that. Continue to, email us if you are noticing individual students that are off. That only helps us to troubleshoot more to make sure that what we're doing is, true and accurate of what you all are sending to us. So that is the ASR right now. If you are seeing any other issues outside of transportation, say you're looking at the comparison grid that shows the overall totals by grade level or basis of admission if you have out-of-home placement students. If you are looking at the comparison grid and that is not matching up with the final report, if you went in and totaled each and every student and made your own totals, if those two are not lining up, please let us know. We have double checked to make sure that that is displaying correctly. So we think we've got it, but if we have missed anything, please let us know. So that's the ASR. For reporting requirements, I've been mentioning the last couple of weeks that we've been putting together a list of the about 50 or so reports due between the start of this pandemic and the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. We, I think, are almost to a final resting place with discussion internally about which reports are still going to be due and which ones are not. So I should be able to get you guys an update, a more detailed update next week. On that, we will, once the list is completely final, we'll send that out through all of our normal channels, through email, through Teams, et cetera, et cetera. So just be on the lookout of that. There is one report that I do need to mention for just so that you all know. You may not be in charge of reporting this, but you might get asked questions by your Title I folks if that's not you. There is a report now open, the Title I Part A report. It's a standalone report outside of the WAVE, but it is pulling out enrollment numbers. So it is possible that your federal programs staff might be coming to you with possible questions. I'm hoping not, but in that event, just know that that is a report that's open right now that is pulling out WAVE data that is separate from the ASR. Hopefully a lot of you shouldn't need to be pulled into it if you're not normally involved, but just know that that is a thing, and it will be, that is a report that is going to be due June, the end of June, but it did open today. So that is the updates that I have for this week in terms of reporting requirements and at least the ASR. So I'll hand it off to Aaron and he'll be going over the validation of the week.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. So this week we're going to talk about some language code errors and some bilingual and English proficiency things that kind of go along with that. For language code is invalid, that specific error, we're seeing about 1,600 errors across the state, and those are stemming from typically just codes that don't actually exist. There is a specific already set list of codes that go for pretty much every language. A couple examples, English is just ENG, Spanish is SPA. We typically don't see too many issues with those two languages since those are the ones that are most frequently used in Oklahoma. But if you are running into an issue where you believe you've used a correct code, feel free to contact us. Or if you're running into an issue where you're not sure what code to use, go ahead and reach out to us and we'll gladly find that code for you. It's a really long list, so I'm not including it in the slides here. And then outside of that, for these bilingual issues that are dealing with the English proficiency code and the other code that goes with that, rather than telling you about those in words, because that can be really hard to follow, I made a chart to kind of help go along with that, so it's a little bit easier to read. And you'll read this from left to right. So for instance, if your English proficiency for a particular student is that they're a native English speaker, 1633, at the top of the English proficiency column there, just going from right to left, you'll be able to see that their ELL should be no, their bilingual should be no, and then the English proficiency other code that goes along with that should be providing an NA, since that's not used for that particular English proficiency code. And then for fluent, similar situation, going left or right, ELL no, bilingual being a yes, and then also an NA on English proficiency code, the other code. And where it gets a little bit more interesting is when you have a student that has been redesignated as fluent. And this is typically where they have tested out of EL services. So their ELL indicator should be no now. However, they can be either a yes or a no on bilingual now. So just because they test out doesn't mean that they are now bilingual. They are just fluent enough in English to no longer have to be required to take EL services. And then depending on your bilingual status of yes or no, the English proficiency other code that goes along with that, that'll tell us whether it's been one, 2, or more than 2 years that they've tested out, will be one of those 3 codes that go along with that. 1 through 6 is what we're expecting on that. And then of course 1637 and 2349 for students who have declined EL services or are receiving EL services is a little bit more straightforward, like the top 2. But this should make it a little bit easier for you to come back to as a resource to check if you're doing the right thing. We're not seeing too many errors across the state on these. It is about 200 for those two, that combination of 2 errors, which is still quite a bit. But I know a lot of that can stem from just a confusion of these specific codes, because the errors don't give a good description of what's going on, and we're trying to fix that. We're in the process of fixing it. But outside of those few errors, I don't have any others for you. So if you're seeing those errors, hopefully this will help you kind of address those. And if not, you'll be a little bit more prepared when or if you need to reach out to us, and we can help you a little bit further if we need to.
Great, yeah, thank you, Aaron. Just to further expand on what he was saying, the 2 errors that you'll mainly see that deal with the EL, bilingual, and English proficiency other codes, those are the student personal ELL and bilingual do not align error, and also the bilingual does not align with the English proficiency code and other code list. Those are the 2 errors that tend to pop the most with those combinations of elements or attributes, sorry. Those statuses for English proficiency, EL, bilingual, and English proficiency other code. So thank you, Aaron, for walking us through that. It's a really good resource. The last thing that I wanted to mention this week is a repeat of the last couple of weeks. If you're not already a part of our Teams channel through Microsoft, I would highly recommend that you join. It's a way that you can quickly reach out to our office. During this time, we'll continue to use it after we're all allowed to, start coming back into the office in a traditional way. But it is a good resource if you do just need a quick, if you have a quick question that you might not think warrants an email to us. or you think might be a good question that not only your district would need to know, but all the districts in the state. Right now, we've got about 70 or so folks that have joined the team. We've been getting pretty good questions so far. So if that is something you're interested in, there is a form on the Waves homepage that you can sign up with your school email, and we'll get you added. Another just good thing about Microsoft Teams is if you did have something specific that you wanted to chat to any of our staff, you can reach out to us just like you could with any IM service like Slack or Google Hangout or anything like that. We can also make phone calls through it too. We've had a few meetings with individual districts, and that's been really helpful. You don't have to use Teams specifically. If we needed to have a meeting or have a phone call, there is a call-in number that we can provide to you as well if you don't have good internet access, but you do have good cell reception. So there are many options with Teams. So if you're interested, there is a form on the homepage right now speaking about that. So right now I will open it up to questions, comments, concerns, anything that you want to let us know of that is going good. I'll go ahead and stop the recording here. But